This is Grand Central Station. We're here about 9 o'clock. We're going out to see a tour about the gangs in New York. Hopefully we have a good day.
Five Points neighborhood was a general term for the tenement neighborhood of the 6th Ward, and this was an election ward. You've heard the term ward healer, maybe. Those were the Irish politicians who ran these political entities of the wards, and they were tremendously powerful in New York. The Tammany Hall people were the ones that really controlled everything. That was in the days before there was any Social Security or any kind of something like Medicaid or unemployment insurance, or any of the social services net that we take for granted now didn't exist. But what happened was, if you were a widow and winter was coming on and you had no coal for your little cast iron furnace that heated your tenement apartment, you go down to see Boss Tweed and he'd be sure you got a bucket of coal every week. Bail bonds. But notice what it says underneath bail bonds. Fianzas. That's another clue to this neighborhood, because after this neighborhood was made up of Irish immigrants, the next wave of immigrants to come in great numbers were the Italians. This is Mulberry Bend Park, and it replaced the most notorious blocks of slums in the 5 Points. Mulberry Street was famous for its horrible tenements over on the side here where the park is now. And these buildings across the street would have been here in the 1850s. The sanitation department and some of the other city offices are in these buildings, along with some of the courtrooms for the criminal courts. But across the street was one of the most notorious sections of the 5 Points called Cow Bay. And there's a famous photograph taken by Jacob Riis of these guys standing on the porches of Cow Bay holding shotguns and a pistol in each hand and a knife tucked in their belts, so it was a tough joint. On the last remaining point of the 5 Points. See the angles of the streets here? This is all that's left. The 5 Points were the street that ran along here, street here. There was another street over here where the courthouse is, and then another street that continues up there is Moscow Street. If we were to continue to walk right through the park, we'd end up at the 5 Points. So this is one of the remaining streets, but you can see they abolished it when it cut through Mulberry Park. So we're about to turn onto Doyers Street. Now this entire neighborhood is still honeycombed with tunnels that go underneath these blocks. They were built probably when the Irish immigrants lived here, because they were constantly engaging in illicit activities and they needed some place to carry that on, and also they needed places to escape from the cops if the police were called. So basically what happened was, the tunnels that had been built by people like Doyers Brewery, which stood right here where this building is 200 years ago. The reason that this little street is called Doyers is because this was the driveway where the beer wagons came to load up, right where we're standing. So during that time they stored barrels of beer down in the cellars, and they made connections between the cellars. And again, this is 200 and more years ago, and the cellars were all linked together to create tunnels that were later used by people in the Dead Rabbits gang and the Roche Guards gang and some of the gang members to escape from the police or to surprise an opposing gang. They could travel for blocks underground in these interconnected cellar tunnels.